Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. On Tuesday, Deputy Secretary for Elementary and Secondary Education, Matthew Stem, announced the upcoming launch of the Accelerated Learning Toolkit, which is a resource that PDE created in partnership with our Patton and IU colleagues that's focused on providing actions and resources and tools that school systems can use to accelerate learning for students. The toolkit is comprised of 4 systems: academics, positive learning environment, system conditions, and scaffolded supports. Throughout the course of the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be offering a series of webinars that will dig into specific topics that are included in each of those 4 systems. Our discussion today will highlight key actions and tools that can be found in a combination of the stakeholder engagement and managing and improvement components of the system condition system. Joining us today, we have Kate Glover, who is a project director at TNTP. The team at TNTP created a toolkit last summer and fall to help school systems navigate the challenges posed by COVID-19. The past year has presented many challenges to our education system. However, it also forced stakeholders across school communities to strengthen relationships, communication, and shared responsibility for ensuring every student is supported and engaged in learning. The tools that Kate will introduce today will help your system frame community conversations in an inclusive and meaningful way. Today, we are also joined by several colleagues who will facilitate breakout room discussions later in our webinar. We have Amy Lena from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Karen Deary from Patton Harrisburg, Michael Imburgia from Berks County Intermediate Unit, and Elizabeth Shotwell, Jennifer Shorter, and Megan Steiner from Lancaster Lebanon Intermediate Unit. Before we get started, let's get to know a little more about you. In the chat, please tell us your name, the LEA or school you represent, and the role that you play in your LEA or school. Good morning, everybody. So it looks like we have a really nice complement of district level, school level, and a variety of roles across each of those levels, as well as some of our intermediate unit partners. So hopefully the conversations that we'll generate and facilitate throughout the course of the webinar today will offer some really interesting insights and vantage points as it relates to framing community conversations. So today we have 4 objectives. We'll start with explaining the 4 principles of authentic stakeholder engagement. Then we'll explain why and how the needs of students and families, and especially those most affected by the pandemic and other impacts of the pandemic, and the voices of teachers and leaders should be incorporated into decision making. And then finally, we'll explore steps and tools that will support your school systems plan and execute authentic engagement strategies, not just for the upcoming school year, but hopefully continuing to enhance and expand those engagement opportunities in future school years as well. Oh, my screen isn't behaving. So we're going to start with some conversations around what it means to authentically engage stakeholders in the planning process. And before we do that, we wanted to offer an opportunity for you to reflect on the engagement efforts that your local system implemented for any one of the stakeholders that you see here, thinking about engagement strategies for families, engagement of students, engagement of leaders and teachers. As you made decisions about what the current school year would look like. So think back to the summer and maybe even, the spring of 2020. As you were preparing to launch the school year, what strategies did you use to engage stakeholders in decision making? And what strengths did you recognize that you want to make sure that you continue to sustain in terms of those strategies that seem to work particularly well? And we'd love to have you share those in the chat. So if you have a strategy you want to highlight, or if you want to share a particular success story, please go ahead and share that with us in the chat. If you're still feeling a little shy, that's fine too. Just jot it down and you don't have to put it out there in the chat. Thank you, David. So your system used parent, community, and stakeholder surveys. Shannon reinforced the use of surveys. Multiple surveys focused on perceptions or comfort with various instructional delivery models. Combination of surveys and face-to-face dialogue with professional staff. Virtual orientations. Oh, a town hall. Another town hall.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do need to go. So thank you very much, Ganesh, for moving those forward. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day. See ya. Bye.
And can everybody please make sure you're on mute? And then letters had postage and contact information. And so when you think about those strategies, are there certain things that you noticed were different as you engaged stakeholders and sought feedback using those strategies that really positioned you to make slightly more informed decisions than you have in the past? Is there like one primary benefit that you recognized from either the town halls, the surveys, the paper communication? So David, if I'm interpreting that right, it sounds like your system benefited because the feedback that you got supported decision making and maybe grounded some assumptions that the system had made before securing the feedback. Oh, that's a really interesting one too. Being able to understand where there may be misinterpretation or miscommunication. So continue to reflect on the ways that your system typically approaches engagement of stakeholders and facilitation of community conversations, because we know that this year in particular, but even before the current school year, systems have been making concerted efforts to gather feedback from families, students, leaders, and teachers. But what we're hoping we can do in our time today is offer you some additional tools or resources, or help you think about the next stage in continuing to grow and enhance your local engagement strategies. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Kate and let her take it from here.
Thank you, Rosemary. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Glover here from TNTP, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today. For those of you who don't know TNTP, just briefly, we are a national nonprofit that partners with schools and districts and networks of districts all across the country to help them reach their goals for students. And we also work to publish helpful resources for critical decisions that our schools and systems are facing. And we know as you launch planning for your next school year, you're going to be faced with a myriad of decisions about health and safety, staff and student well-being, and academics. And most critically, you're going to have to plan to address learning loss and accelerate learning for students struggling academically as a result of this significant disruptions to learning we've experienced over the past year. So there are lots of high stakes decisions ahead, and we believe it will be critical that the needs of students and families and the voices of teachers and leaders are incorporated into structures and decisions, and so have crafted some tools to support that effort. So that is what I'm here to share a little bit more about today. Rosemary kicked us off with some great independent reflection on our stakeholder engagement efforts over the past year. So I want you to be keeping those in mind as we dig in. At TNTP, we like to think of stakeholder engagement work on a continuum of the impact on decision making. So you can see that continuum here on the slide. Traditional efforts tend to fall in the buckets on the left hand of the continuum, informing or consulting. So when you're informing your stakeholders, you're really providing them with some balanced and objective information about decisions and updates during implementation. And if you're moving to more of a consulting engagement role, then you're inviting feedback on alternatives, analyses, and decisions, and sharing back how their feedback has influenced your decisions. So a traditional approach to stakeholder engagement often focuses on really a discrete goal or specific outcome. And it's usually characterized by one-way communication, so communicating with your stakeholders. Strategies here are often fairly transactional in nature, but they can prove really useful in the early stages of relationship building. So things like newsletters and some of the other things that you all mentioned too. More authentic engagement efforts, of course, though, fall on the right hand of the continuum, from involving to collaborating and increasing agency. So when you're truly involving your stakeholders, you're actually working with them to ensure their aspirations and concerns are considered at every stage, and then sharing back how their involvement has shaped decisions. And of course, when you're collaborating with your stakeholders, you're actually enabling them to participate in all aspects of the planning and decision making. And finally, if you're able to reach the increasing agency end of the continuum, roles would actually be reversed here, where stakeholders are given authority over decision making, and professionals serve more in that consultative role. So take a minute just to use your reflections from last year and consider where most of your efforts have lived on this engagement spectrum. And we'd love for you all to share some of those reflections in the chat. Thanks for kicking us off, Todd. Involving. So making sure our stakeholders' aspirations and concerns are really considered at every stage. Great, so we have some folks thinking about increasing agency, really handing over or giving the authority for decision making to our stakeholders. consulting and involving, informing. Great. We'll keep that continuum front of mind as we move forward. But the key takeaway here really is for engagement to truly be authentic engagement, your stakeholders, so your families, your students, your leaders, your teachers, they must have really genuine opportunities to shape student experiences and act as co-designers and decision makers in key processes. So that is what we're really aiming for when we think about authentically engaging our stakeholders. And we'll talk a little bit more about why shortly. But this type of authentic engagement really rests on 4 key principles that help guide our thinking at TNTP about this work. The first is shared vision and accountability. Stakeholders and school systems must first work closely together to really shape a common vision for student success, and make sure that everyone, from students to families to teachers and leaders, has a role to play in that vision, and that it is truly a shared vision for the student experience. The second key idea here is intentional culture and diversity. So to build trust with our stakeholders, especially in communities that have historically experienced disinvestment, it's important that schools and systems and the people who work within them address their biases, understand the unique context and assets of specific communities, and encourage the sharing of diverse perspectives. And this is not easy work at all, but it is critical that we are genuinely open to the perspectives of those we serve. The third here is authentic collaboration, and this is where we'll spend most of our time focused today, but this is that our stakeholders are, including our families and community organizations, are really critical to student success. And so schools and systems need to share data and resources that can help those stakeholders, families, and community organizations better support student learning outside of school as well. And then finally, 360-degree communication. Sharing information regularly and transparently is critical, but it is just not enough. Schools and systems have to create really meaningful opportunities for all voices to be heard, and families and communities need to know that their feedback was actually incorporated into decision-making. They're actually playing an authentic decision-making role. So now we've explored what it means to authentically engage stakeholders in the planning process. So now we're going to shift briefly to why that is a valuable effort, why it's important for us to really authentically engage our stakeholders in the planning process. So I first want to ask you all, who are our stakeholders in the 2021-22 planning process? So as you think about the many decisions you all will make in planning to launch next school year, who are your stakeholders? And again, we'd love for you to share some ideas in the chat. Great. Lots of comprehensive ideas in the chat here, of course. Students, families, our staff, teachers, leaders, other school staff members. We also have community nonprofits and community partners, our board. So lots of stakeholders that should be authentically engaged in the planning process and the decision-making process for launching next school year, where we are going to have to make a lot of decisions about health and safety, as well as addressing learning loss and accelerating students back to grade level. So you all captured, I think, my full list and more, but of course, central office staff, school leaders, teachers, school support staff, our families, our students, and our community partners. So let's start with students and families. I would love to hear from folks in the chat now that we've explored what authentic engagement really means. Why do you all think it's important that we authentically engage students and families in our 21-22 restart planning? What is the value of that? Some great reflections in the chat again, buy-in and support. We're here to meet their needs. Kids have the best insight into what worked and didn't work. Connectedness to mission, shared ownership, agency. Yes, and it sure does take a village. Yeah. So students, of course, are those most impacted by the planning decisions being made. Adults know all kinds of things about how schools operate, but there's actually only one generation of American students who have gone to school during a pandemic. And it's their experience that we are planning for. And then, of course, with families and community members thrust into the roles of active facilitators of their children's education this past year and past the previous spring, systems are really no longer able to view their families and community as passive bystanders. This is a real pivotal moment, where we can work to shift the relationship with families and community partners to real genuine partnerships in support of students' education. And research actually suggests that when teachers and leaders engage students, families, and communities as true partners, everyone reaps the benefits. So there's lots of research to suggest this is a valuable effort. Increased family engagement in education is linked to improved school readiness, higher grades, higher test scores, better attendance, fewer tardies, decreased suspension and expulsion rates, and the increased likelihood of high school graduation. All things we are likely striving for as we think about our decision making for next year. In fact, a 15-year study of 400 Chicago schools found that schools with strong family and community ties, regardless of any other factors, were 4 times more likely to improve reading and 10 times more likely to improve in math. In a study of Title I schools, teachers who were especially active in engaging parents and sharing resources to support learning at home saw larger gains in student achievement, again, regardless of other factors. And research also shows that the best predictor of student success is the extent to which families encourage learning at home and involve themselves in their child's education. So lots of research supporting this as a valuable effort. And of course, our students and families being the most impacted by the decisions we are making. So let's shift to teachers. Why, again, would love to hear from you all now that we've explored again what it means to really authentically engage our stakeholders. Why do you think we should authentically engage teachers and leaders in our 21-22 restart plans? What's the value of that? Again, lots of wonderful reflections in the chat. They also have done something that no one else has ever done before. Again, buy-in and support are critical. They are on the front lines carrying out initiatives. Concerned for their own safety and their family safety too. So we're also considering the impact on them. Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, so alongside students, educators are also incredibly impacted by the planning decisions being made. Teachers, along with our students, of course, will be the most at risk if proper safeguards, health and safety protocols are not in place. And then on top of the health risks, teachers will be expected to meet the academic needs of all students, many of whom will have experienced significant disruptions to their learning and may have suffered significant learning loss. So our teachers are the ones that ultimately carry the burden of addressing learning loss and accelerating our students back to grade level. In addition to being impacted by the decisions being made, teachers and leaders are really critical to the success and sustainability of the decisions being made. So decisions on paper will mean nothing if those responsible for actually executing on them are not invested in them and do not feel like their aspirations and concerns were incorporated into the decision making and don't change their day-to-day. Okay, so we spent some time now talking about what it means to authentically engage stakeholders. We've also spent some time thinking about why it's important for us to authentically engage our stakeholders and some specific groups of stakeholders. So we're now going to move to our next agenda item, where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today here, which is how can I organize my stakeholder engagement efforts? The process and tools that we'll explore today are part of TNTP's more comprehensive COVID-19 school response toolkit that Rosemary mentioned at the beginning. And I'm actually going to drop the link to that toolkit into the chat. Fingers crossed it works, because Zoom sometimes doesn't like links. So if you all would click on that link, that will navigate you to the home page for our comprehensive COVID-19 response toolkit. In this toolkit, we offer a variety of different free resources to help adults in the school system navigate the wide range of challenges they're facing right now and will face as they're working to plan for next school year. So things like we have resources in there for supporting implementing strong at-home instruction while schools were closed or are closed. Some resources for helping you work with your teams remotely, finding virtual solutions to teacher recruitment, staffing, and professional learning. And then, of course, what we are talking about today, planning for the residual effects of the pandemic on the upcoming school year. We will also be adding new resources in the coming weeks and months to this toolkit. So you can actually sign up on this homepage for updates, and you'll be notified when we add something new if you're interested. So we're going to explore some of the resources in this toolkit. One of the resources in the toolkit is titled 5 Essentials for Engaging Families and Community Partners in Your Reopening Efforts. This document was originally crafted as we were planning for this school year, but the framework within this document that helps us organize our stakeholder engagement efforts is still really relevant as we think about next year. And so we're going to use this framework today to organize our thinking. But first, I am going to drop a link into the chat, again, hoping that this will work for me, to that resource in case you would like to look at the source of the framework we're going to engage with. Great. Okay. So you can see here, this is the organizing framework that comes directly from that resource, 5 Essentials for Engaging Families and Community Partners in Our Reopening Efforts. And it outlines this 5-step framework to help us organize our stakeholder engagement efforts. Step 1, to reach out. Step 2 to listen, step 3 to assess, step 4 to plan, and step 5 to engage. We're actually going to walk through each of these steps and explore some of the tools in the toolkit that can support your efforts at each stage. So we'll start with the first one, reach out. So step 1 is to reach out, and it's really important that you can actually start a dialogue now with your stakeholders while plans are still being developed and before any 21-22 restart decisions have actually been made. It will be critical in this phase that you work to establish some strong two-way communication mechanisms with stakeholders. So again, when I reference stakeholders, I'm really thinking comprehensively about leaders, teachers, families, and students. And it's important here that we don't assume that our stakeholders are visiting websites to seek out information. Instead, we should really be thinking about using every available means of communication to share key dates, timelines for making decisions, opportunities for stakeholders to provide input. And really make sure that our stakeholders have some mechanism for communicating with us too, and asking questions and receiving timely answers from their school or from their school system. It'll also be important in this phase of the work that we share information transparently with stakeholders and begin to set some expectations for the next school year early on. So identify for your stakeholders what is already known, what is yet to be decided, and how you will actually engage your stakeholders in that decision-making process. Oh, now my slides are not behaving again. The next step outlined in this organizing framework is to actually listen. So in this phase, you can collect input on stakeholders' experiences, their needs and their preferences, as well as resources and support that are available from the broader community. There are lots of challenges to be solved, and there are lots of community assets and partners that we can work together to address those challenges and concerns. So in this phase, we suggest you collect data on educators, students, and families' experiences this year, and their ideas, perspectives, and priorities for next year. So collect data on needs and preferences for returning to school, so things like health concerns, scheduling considerations, learning loss concerns, as well as students and families' experiences with different instructional models this year, their experiences this year that can inform the decisions for next year. It'll also be critical at this point that you set up diverse stakeholder committee to provide more detailed feedback during various stages of the planning process. So a committee of folks that are heavily involved in all of the planning and decision making. And I think here what's really critical is that you pay special attention to ensure you include traditionally marginalized subgroups and families and students who have special needs in your planning process and in your diverse stakeholder committee, so that we're genuinely and authentically listening to their concerns and priorities and incorporating those into our decision-making processes. So we have a couple of resources in the COVID-19 response toolkit that can help you with these two stages of the work, reaching out and listening. Surveys, many of you mentioned surveys at the beginning of our webinar today. Surveys are a really great tool for collecting data on educators, students, and families' experiences this year, and then also their ideas, perspectives, and priorities for next year. As part of our toolkit, we have made a family and student item bank available that could be a really great starting point. So I'm also going to link that in the chat. Bear with me. Thank you for your grace as I, as I try to navigate a few separate documents. So that link will take you to our family and student item bank that's available. It again could be a good starting point. This is a bank of questions that was designed to help districts and charter network leaders gather feedback from stakeholders so they could better understand the quality of students' learning experiences this year. We also have a full learning experience survey that includes customized questions for teachers, school leaders, and school support staff, in addition to students and families. But only the family and student item bank are currently freely available online. So if you're interested in surveying additional stakeholders or having TNTP administer the survey and create reports for you all, you are welcome to reach out directly to us. And there's actually some information about that in the item bank that's made publicly available. So surveys are a great starting point. Community conversations can also provide a chance for you all to go deeper with your stakeholders to really deeply understand their experiences, perceptions, and preferences. So although surveys are a critical start to that process, community conversations are going to represent a tool for 360-degree feedback, which is one of the key ideas we explored earlier in the webinar. So in a community conversation, our stakeholders are not simply asked their opinion, but they're also given the opportunity to share ideas for next steps and improvement. So reflects that key tenet of 360-degree feedback. So TNTP has actually developed a guide to support the implementation of community conversations during a time of remote learning and social distancing, when it is challenging for us to convene our stakeholders to engage in those really rich community conversations. Although conversations with stakeholders are always essential, we actually believe that they're especially essential right now. So this guide is tailored for use by school system leaders looking to gain more insight into their stakeholders' experiences during this school year, this incredibly challenging school year, and their preferences for reopening. It also gives some guidance on engaging with families and students whose voices may not typically be captured through our typical survey tools. So I'm going to drop a link to the community conversations resource now and actually talk you through some of the steps in this resource. So far, so good. These links seem to be working in the chat, which is really a Zoom miracle. So hopefully you can open up this resource. And I'm going to navigate to it on my screen too. And talk you through this. So as you are planning to engage your stakeholders in community conversations, step one is to decide on the community conversation objectives and participant groups. So that's where you're really thinking about what are the essential questions where you need some stakeholder input, and then who are the right stakeholders to engage through community conversations on those topics. After you've made those decisions, the next step is to really think about who will facilitate at the community conversations and then the breadth of their role. So for each stakeholder group, will the community conversation be managed internally by the school or the district, or externally by a community-based organization or other group? If the community conversation will be managed externally, you'll want to think through what are the actual responsibilities of the community-based organization you're asking to manage it. And then how will the managing group and participants be compensated, and who specifically will facilitate each community conversation? The third step then in that process is to actually coordinate the logistics and invite attendees. So when, where, and on which platform will the community conversations take place? How should you invite participants? What are the minimum and maximum number of participants, and how often should you communicate with participants prior to and after the community conversations? Step 4 in this planning guide is going to suggest that you confirm community conversation protocol and questions. So you'll think deeply about how you'll frame the community conversation for participants. And then step 5, of course, is to actually implement your community conversation. So there's some guidance in here in this planning guide around what you should do before the virtual community conversation, what you might do during it, and what you might do after it. And then finally, step 6, a critical step, summarize your findings and report back to your stakeholders. So here you'll create internal and external summaries of the community conversation themes and illustrative quotations, and share themes with attendees and external stakeholder groups, along with the actions you plan to take as a result. So I'm going to try to get my PowerPoint back up. Fingers crossed this works. Oh, this is what I wanted. Great. Okay, so we've explored 2 tools here that might help us in those first phases of our stakeholder engagement work, where we're really reaching out and listening to our stakeholders. We know that surveys are a really great starting point, and that community conversations allow us to go deeper with our stakeholders and also hear from those stakeholders who might be typically missed with survey administration. I'm now going to shift in a moment. We are going to break into smaller groups to discuss with our colleagues across the state and start brainstorming around this work. So specifically, when you get into your breakout rooms in a moment, we're going to ask you all to think about and discuss the guiding questions you see on the screen with your colleagues from across the state. So just to get you started thinking about these initial stages of stakeholder engagement, we're asking what your initial thoughts are around how you will ensure all stakeholders have access to consistent, transparent updates about the current school year and the decision-making process for next year. And then how you will ensure that all stakeholders have genuine opportunities to give feedback on what is currently working or not working. And then, of course, your upcoming decisions about next year. So as you think about these 2 guiding questions, remember to consider how you might leverage stakeholder surveys and community conversations to support these efforts. So with that, we're going to have 10 minutes in breakout rooms. I'm going to copy and paste the questions into the chat for reference, but I'm going to let Rosemary give you some directions for navigating to your breakout rooms.
Thanks, Kate. So there's 3 ways that you can get to the breakout room of your choice. For this webinar, we thought it might be most helpful to create breakout rooms according to the community type that your school system supports. So we'll have one room that will allow you to engage with other systems that support rural communities, one room focused on suburban communities, and one room focused on urban communities. The 3 ways that you can select which of those community types you prefer to join is option 1. You can go down to the portion where you see breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen and select the room that's labeled according to the community type you're interested in joining. The second option is, you can see here an example. You can rename yourself so that after your name, you insert either rural, suburban, or urban, and then somebody from our team will automatically send you to that room. And then thank you for Patricia for demonstrating option number 3 is, like Patricia and Ken have done, you can just in the chat signal to us, is it rural, suburban, or urban that you'd like to join? So we're going to spend 10 minutes in each of our breakout rooms, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to dig into some more tools that will align with the remaining stages of the framework that Kate introduced.
Okay, I think we have everyone back. Hopefully that gave you a chance to thought partner with some colleagues from across the state just to start thinking about those early phases of your stakeholder engagement work as you plan for next year, and gave you a chance to think about how you might leverage stakeholder surveys and community conversations to actually support those efforts. So after you've reached out and listened, the next step in our organizing framework is, of course, to actually review the data on your stakeholders' experiences, their needs and preferences, as well as the resources and support that are available in your broader community. It's critical at this stage that you actually share feedback trends and partner with your internal and external stakeholders to address identified needs. So gathering feedback from surveys, focus groups, town halls, or community conversations or other means it's one of the most important components of community and stakeholder engagement. But ultimately what you do with the data is much more important than the data itself. Being transparent about the full range of feedback you heard is really key to strengthening your relationships with stakeholders in the long run, which of course is critical to student success. This is not easy work. The feedback that you solicit, through the feedback you solicit, you will identify areas for celebration, but you'll also surface results you're not as proud of, right? So you may feel an impulse to share only the good news, but being transparent about the full range of feedback you've heard from stakeholders is really key to strengthening relationships with families and your community over the long run. So if you regularly create meaningful opportunities for all voices to be heard, and your stakeholders know the role that their feedback plays in decision making, you can build really strong partnerships that will greatly benefit students. So as part of the COVID-19 response toolkit, TNTP has created a reflection and planning guide to help you think about how you might share your stakeholder feedback. I'm making sure I'm checking the chat. I think you all are talking to each other in the chat, which is great, but I don't want to miss any questions.
Kate, there was a really good question from Terry. So any thoughts on your end from your experience, or we could open up the chat for anybody who's with us about times when there was feedback that was gathered, but then the decision didn't seem to incorporate or reflect that feedback. And so it disincentivized stakeholders to then engage in future opportunities. So if there is a more appropriate place that we could embed some time to talk through this, or if we could pause and talk through this now, I've heard a lot of similar experiences.
Yeah, I think this is such a great question, and I have some ideas, but I would love to just open it up to folks to hear if you all have, if this experience resonates with you, or if you all have suggestions or solutions when this is the case.
And you can either come off mute or type in the chat, whatever is easier. One I can share just from some of my experiences. One thing that I have seen school systems do is frame the communication around the decision in a manner that that incorporates time to discuss the feedback that that we received. So, you know, what are some of those headlines that came out of those conversations or the survey responses from multiple stakeholders? And then when communicating the nature of the decision, where it differed from what the stakeholders were signaling they would prefer, or that they had a difference of opinion, there was some explanation of why. Either it was that the feedback wasn't possible and explaining why that wasn't possible, or giving an opportunity to at least see, we did hear, and we landed in this place because of these constraints that are outside of our control, or whatever it may be. But I have seen system leaders take time to kind of map that path from feedback to decision, and then provide some, you know, some caveats or flag places where the decision differs.
I've seen that be really powerful. The other thing I've seen system leaders do that has been powerful is actually use this as an opportunity to bring stakeholders together for community conversations, to dig in on maybe a third way. So it's not a this versus that, but how can we come together to think of a third solution that might be acceptable to everyone, and respect the needs and preferences of everyone. It likely depends on the actual decision being made and the feedback you got from your stakeholders. Anyone else have any ideas about how to approach this when you get conflicting feedback or conflicting stakeholder preferences?
I think, Kate, I don't know if this is like really a solution or anything major, but just allowing them the opportunity to hear about it before the major communication comes out kind of softens the blow a little bit, to like hear and understand the reasoning behind it, like Rosemary alluded to it, and finding out a little bit before the larger communication comes out about the decision.
Great point.
I think it also, you know, if there's a way to avoid having those questions, if you're asking stakeholders, do you prefer A or B, but you're not sure that you have control over A or B, to make sure you're asking the right questions up front and being really thoughtful about, you know, how those surveys or questionnaires are framed.
Yes, and being really transparent about what is known, what is still open, and how stakeholder feedback will be incorporated.
Right, and I would say being careful, even just at the most basic level, being careful not to ask a question when there's one of the answers you don't want to get. And I gave that feedback to a new teacher this morning. She asked a kid if he wanted a graphic organizer. He said no, and she gave him one anyway because he needed it for, you know. And so that's a basic new teacher thing, but that's something that we have to understand as well. You know, if there's an answer that we might get that we don't want to get, then we be careful about that question.
Great point. So I think a theme that stands out in this conversation is the importance of sharing back what you learn from feedback from your stakeholders and the rationale for decisions that are being made. So to bring us back to the assess phase of the framework, again, TeamTP has created a reflection and planning guide to help you all think about sharing your stakeholder feedback. So I'm going to link that in the chat and then talk you through this resource as well. And then we will break back out into our small groups to talk about how we might plan for this work specifically. So if you navigate to that, you should see this resource here, planning, reflection and planning guide for sharing stakeholder feedback. Hopefully my tech is working and you can see the right thing on my screen. I'm just going to walk you through this. So this tool will help you prepare to share stakeholder feedback with your community in a way that's honest, productive, and focused on solutions. So keep in mind that sharing this feedback isn't a one-time task, right? It's not, this is the start of a continuous process of 360-degree communication with our stakeholders. It's not a one and done. But we did outline the specific steps to help you think through how you might do that. So step 1 encourages you to identify the headlines. So while you'll be sharing all information publicly, part of communicating well is sharing what is most important, right? You don't need to share everything. So with your team, really think about identifying the most important takeaways in terms of areas for celebration, areas for growth, and then when and how those areas for growth will be addressed. Step 2 is going to prompt you to anticipate questions and plan responses. So now that you've identified some headlines, you know what the most important information or takeaways you're planning to share. Put yourselves in the shoes of your stakeholders. What questions or concerns might you have if you were them after reading those headlines? And you can see the planning and reflection guide gives you some space to think about different stakeholders here. Step 3 is going to prompt you to craft a narrative. So using your headlines and anticipated questions, draft a few sentences that tell a clear story about your stakeholder feedback. This can serve really as like a quick summary of your results, as well as a foundation for your other communications about planning moving forward. And step 4 is going to prompt you to create a 360-degree communications plan and develop materials. So build your plan to share the results with your stakeholders using the headlines, anticipated questions, and your narrative as a guide. And the final step here in this planning guide is to continue to seek feedback and debrief. So just as with other components of your work, approach sharing your stakeholder feedback with the mindset of continuous improvement. So learn from your stakeholders what worked well about the process, what could be improved, and continue to gather their feedback so you can work to continuously improve your engagement efforts with key stakeholders. So I'll attempt to navigate back to my slides. Great. So now we're going to get back into our breakout groups to discuss the following. So we spent some time already thinking about how we'd solicit feedback from our stakeholders early on in our early phases of stakeholder engagement. Now we're going to get back with our colleagues to think about how we will actively share back what we learn with our stakeholders. So here are your guiding questions for discussion. How will you actively share and discuss what you learn with stakeholders, ensuring it is understandable? And of course, consider how you might leverage the sharing stakeholder feedback, reflection, and planning guide in that effort. So I don't know if we need to do this again, do we? Maybe Rosemary can help me here. Can they just jump back?
Nope. As soon as we, Kate, as soon as we reopen the rooms, folks will automatically be shifted back to the room they were already in.
Wonderful. Okay, so you will see your friends from your breakout room shortly. And we have, again, 10 minutes for this discussion.
So we'll come back at 12:50.
Perfect. Okay, great. I think we have everyone back. So hopefully that gave you a chance to brainstorm with your colleagues about how you might share trends back with your stakeholders and how you might leverage the sharing stakeholder feedback, reflection, and planning guide in that effort. So now that you have, now that we have talked about soliciting all this input and sharing trends back with our stakeholders, the next step in the framework is actually to develop that comprehensive plan that incorporates the ideas, perspectives, and priorities of all stakeholders. So as you're thinking about this, it's really critical that you make sure that every department, internal department that's involved in decision-making is really required to and thinking about making those decisions with stakeholders and incorporating their ideas, perspectives, and priorities. It'll also be important at this phase that you highlight some metrics that will be used to gauge the success of the plan and ensure that those metrics are tied to the values that matter most to your stakeholders. And then it will also be critical that we summarize the plan in accessible language and provide additional opportunities for our stakeholders to provide feedback before finalizing it. And the final step that we outline in our framework is to continue to engage. So share the plan with your stakeholders and work together to strengthen the supports available to students and families. So this will look like providing regular forum for sharing information about your restart decisions with stakeholders, including any new or existing community partners, and then sharing information transparently with stakeholders and providing ongoing opportunities for input. So this is not the end of the process. It is not necessarily a linear process, of course, because we're thinking about ongoing authentic engagement and 360-degree communication. So with that, that was all 5 of the steps in our framework for authentic engagement of stakeholders in your restart planning. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Rosemary to just lead our closing reflection and commitments.
Thank you, Kate. So we hope that as a result of this conversation, there's at least one tool that stood out for you, or a section of a tool that that kind of helped stretch your thinking a little bit, or planted a seed that hadn't already been planted as you think about your communication efforts. And for some reason, the slide deck isn't responding to me. There we go. I'm going to leave this here for you to think about, but so that we can make sure you get credit for your engagement in this session today and have a chance to provide some feedback. I'm going to skip right to the information you need. You can feel free to take a screenshot of this. You can type in the links that you see here, or you can scan the code. The bar, but the exit code that you'll need for this session is 85293. So I'm going to pause here for a second and let you document the information that you need. And thank you, Sarah. Sarah just inserted the link in the chat if you want to access it directly from the chat. Is there anyone who needs another minute? Okay, I don't see any. So then the last order of business is I am going to put a link to a survey in the chat. And we would really love your feedback about this session. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank Kate for joining us and highlighting the resources that she highlighted, but also connecting you to the larger complement of resources that are available in the TNTP toolkit. And I want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing to engage stakeholders in your local community. It is clear from the discussion that you have been focusing on and prioritizing engagement with stakeholders. And so we hope that our time together gives you at least one thing that you can apply when you go back and continue to work with your teams.